critical infrastructure is life or death, you are a stakeholder. You are a critical owner and operator of critical infrastructure. It's your responsibility, like it or
Yeah.
not. This is how we have to work together. Can't do it alone. You know, none of us individually is as smart as all of us collectively. So let's make this a collaborative effort.
Help me with hip hop. Let's get it right. Protect your patience. Day and night. Donna and David, the experts on your side. Help me with hip hop. Let's get it right.
Welcome to today's podcast. Today we have a guest, and that is unusual for those of you who listen a lot. And even more unusual is that I'm podcasting from the car today because I could not get into my hotel room in time, even though they promised me a 4:00 hotel room. That is not the case. So I am sitting in Myrtle Beach in 95-degree weather in the car with the AC blaring because the show must go on.
That's right. And we got Greg. So, I mean, we were excited about this and didn't want to have to reschedule because we know he's a busy man.
He is definitely
David, you're in the car, and I'm here at global headquarters of the Health Sector Coordinating Council, which also happens to be my man cave.
Yeah. So today we've got Greg Garcia, and we talk about him from time to time. Just don't tell him what we say, but we do talk about him from time to time. And so Donna pulled some strings and got him here on the podcast, and we have lots to talk about. So, Greg, for those of you who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, great. Thanks for having me on your show. And it's great to be here and talk about the Sector Coordinating Council and myself. I'm the executive director of the Health Sector Coordinating Council. It's cybersecurity working group. I come at this not as a healthcare expert. I've been at it for 7 years, but really I'm more at the intersection of security and policy and business. I held a similar role not too long ago with the financial services sector. I was the nation's first assistant secretary for cybersecurity at the Department of Homeland Security, appointed by President Bush from 2006 to 9. So I got to see how all of these critical infrastructure sectors across the country organize themselves around this cybersecurity mission. And I've spent some time in the Congress with the information technology sector. So it's been a fun ride, but always really focused on our national homeland security and business and policy. So the healthcare sector is really got a lot of momentum in that area now.
Mm-hmm. Thanks to you. I think you've had a lot to do with it getting us going, because it's David and I can tell you, we've been doing this for 10 years. We can get people to listen to us. So now that's a whole lot easier because of the work that you guys have done. I know we try to explain HSCC all the time, which nobody wants to say all of those words. So we say HSCC, but there's the public-private thing that always gets confused, that you want to do like a couple of minutes on, we're not HHS, but we work with HHS sometimes, but not always, but occasionally.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I appreciate your giving me the credit, but I certainly have had the experience and the vision to help motivate the sector. But what our backing is this public-private partnership that you mentioned, Donna. There's an official status of this generic thing called sector coordinating councils. There are 16, 17 sector coordinating councils designated by the government. Those are the critical infrastructure industry councils, advisory councils, organized and managed by the private sector. And, you know, when you think of critical infrastructure, you think of healthcare, you think of financial services, telecommunications, electricity, oil and gas, water, transportation, everything that the public depends upon. The government, through a series of executive orders, presidential executive orders, and some statutes by the Congress, said these critical sectors are essential to the economic security, the national security, the homeland security of the nation. And because these critical sectors are primarily owned and operated by private industry, it is up to us in industry to organize ourselves around identifying and mitigating systemic threats like natural threats, pandemics, severe weather events, or man-made threats like active shooter, terrorism, or in our case, cyber attack. And this policy foundation that has been in place since 1998 is not mandating that the industry do what we are doing. It is mandating that those executive branch agencies that have responsibility over a given sector, that they need to go work with their private sector counterparts. Naturally, Department of Health and Human Services is our primary partner. That's the public-private partnership. Department of Treasury deals with financial services. Department of Energy deals with electricity, oil and gas, etc. So that's the public-private partnership, and it's founded on the recognition that, yes, we are regulated in healthcare, but regulation alone is not going to be able to address all of the complex and evolving kinds of threats facing healthcare, particularly cybersecurity and all the digital and high-tech innovations going on, nor will market forces alone. We can't just tell the government, just leave us alone, we'll take care of it. No, we won't. So that's the essence of the public-private partnership. And so therefore, all sector coordinating councils are unique relative to any of the trade associations, right? A lot of the trade associations, they are subsector based, whether they're representing the hospitals or the medical device companies. They do a lot of lobbying. We're not lobbyists, we advise. And we need to be representing the full interconnected ecosystem of healthcare, just as the Financial Services Council needs to represent the full financial services ecosystem. So in that sense, the existence and the evolution of the sector coordinating council model, the public-private partnership, has given the stakeholders in the healthcare industry a sense of confidence that they have to be listened to.
Yeah.
They have to be consulted by the government. And so therein lies our credibility, simply organically. And fortunately, the leadership of the Sector Coordinating Council recognized the importance of having a full-time salaried executive director, that's me, to provide a level of institutional memory, leadership continuity, that kind of thing. So that's the elevator pitch going up to the 128th floor. So it was a long elevator pitch.
No worries, because it's something that most people don't even realize is happening out there.
Yeah.
Because it is, it's, as you say, for the sector, by the sector.
Yep.
Which then takes us on to our tagline, cyber safety is patient safety. And, you always make sure we get that in there somewhere. And I think that is a lot different from like financial services. Obviously, emergency services and other things, you have a lot more concern with people's lives, but nobody has the same level of concern as healthcare does, because it doesn't really matter. You're all getting healthcare. And, or we hope everybody is getting what care they need.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, how did you settle on cyber safety as patient safety? I know it's important. We've had our tagline that HIPAA is not about compliance, it's about patient care for 10 years. We were thrilled. Well, first we were a little like, why are you stealing from us, Greg? But then...
I started when I came on, just as I started listening to everybody and understanding what's happening in healthcare. I'm not a marketer, but I tend to think in slogans and memorable phrases and acronyms. But I thought, what did I say? I mean, you can't have patient safety without cyber safety, and then it just naturally condensed to cyber safety is patient safety. But it's really based on the ground truth. More and more we are seeing, particularly with ransomware attacks, that ransomware attacks are actually disrupting healthcare, delaying healthcare, diverting ambulances to another hospital down the road. This causes disruptions in the delivery of healthcare, and patients are being harmed. Thankfully, it is, we haven't seen, a cascade of deaths or harm because of ransomware. But as security people, we are paid to be paranoid, and we need to organize around the expectation that is what can happen and what we have to protect against.
Yeah, and it's something that I think has started hitting home. I know it's a message. Cybersecurity is a chronic condition of the sector.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's another one we use, but it's along those same lines of, this isn't about trying to tell you how to run your business. This is about making sure that we as a sector can be available, providing the care that the public needs.
Yeah, and when you think of critical infrastructure, that term has real meaning. Not in all cases, but in many cases, critical infrastructure is called that because it involves life and death. Not just in healthcare. We can't do healthcare without electricity. We can't do healthcare without water or without transportation and emergency services. We can't do healthcare without chemicals that provide a lot of the components of pharmaceuticals. So there is this interdependent ecosystem, and so when I think of cyber safety as patient safety, well, we are dependent on so many other critical sectors, and when I give a new member orientation call, and if the question comes, well, why should we be doing this? How does this differ from anything else? And I said, well, because it's your responsibility. Critical infrastructure is life or death. You are a stakeholder. You are a critical owner and operator of critical infrastructure. It's your responsibility, like it or not. This is how we have to work together. Can't do it alone. None of us individually is as smart as all of us collectively. So let's make this a collaborative effort.
Yeah, I always enjoy when I get to teach developers, and I work with so many different types of companies, and organizations, but it's the young technical people where I get to say, Grandma's here to tell you some stories about what it used to be like. The look on their faces when I say, you see zeros and ones, but what you need to understand is those aren't rows in a table. Those are people. And that's what you need to be thinking about when you're working with this. It's people. The data is people. And you can impact either their future care or their current care or their ability to manage things if you aren't paying attention to what you're doing. It does get your attention.
I had a conversation with one of our chief information security officers, and she recounted a story that, as you would expect, a lot of the physicians in her hospital, it's like cybersecurity. Oh God, here comes more training. Why do I need to be concerned about that? They say, look, I'm here. I got to take care of patients. I got to take care of my patients. And the CISO said, you have to be concerned about your 10, 15, 20 patients that are on your docket. I have to be concerned about all the patients in this hospital because I'm running the technology that is keeping them healthy and keeping their medical records straight and secure. So we're in this together, pal.
I love it.
A really compelling statement.
I always like CISOs have gotten some great ways that I always love to hear the ways that they've found to get messages across to the leadership. And one of my favorites was this was long ago when everybody realized we had to start doing phishing tests, right? And so the CISO, they sent it out just to the leadership first. That was their first test when they were bringing it on, and went to this big meeting, leadership meeting, and she went around handing out suckers to certain ones. And some of them were putting those suckers in like, I got a treat, I must have been good. Like, because you go to the doctor, you get a good treat. And she's like, so everybody that got a sucker clicked on the phishing email and people are like,
because they're the suckers. They were suckered into it. That's great. That's a good one.
The people are spitting those things out, sliding them over to other people. It was great. I thought it was brilliant. But that takes us on though to the next thing is, and even I, working with the subgroups, I'm on the AI subgroup, and as you well know, but when I'm working on things, I'm starting to grasp that everything we do needs to tie back to our 5-year plan. And, I get something done and then I still go back and check now. Oh, wait, I didn't tie it back. So how can I do that? And so let's talk a little bit about the 5-year plan and how did we even decide that we could make a 5-year plan? I know it's just like as unruly of a sector that healthcare is. It's kind of like data goes everywhere and devices are all over the place and we don't even know what they are. There's no control, but let's put it back together.
Well, yeah, and it's an audacious plan in the sense that you could look across the healthcare community and they'll look back at us and they'll go, who are you to tell us? Who are you? What sector coordinated council? What do you mean 12 implementing objectives? There's a little bit of history here, and I'll make it quick. But just before I came on in 2017, there was our guiding light at that time. It's called the Healthcare Industry Cybersecurity Task Force Report. I think you were on that, Donna, were you not?
No, but I mean, okay. I worked with all the folks that did do it.
Yeah, so you were, yes, and you were obviously a thought leader in that process. But that task force report really was our compass. It's a lot like what our strategic plan is now, which was published in February of last year. But it said, here's all the problems with healthcare cybersecurity, which we diagnosed to be in critical condition. Here's what we need to do to get to stable condition. And it was a long, long list of things having to do with technology and data and incident response and workforce development. And so when we came on, we organized the cybersecurity working group around a task group structure. At the time, there might have been about 10 task groups when we organized in 2018. And each task group is to handle a specific cybersecurity function: medical device security, hospital cyber best practices, workforce development, incident response. And these task groups were made up of the members of the member organizations and their practitioners, from the CISO on down to the subject matter experts, to say, they come to the table to say, here's how we're doing it, and it's working pretty well. We are offering this, our best practices to the community, and everyone's offering their best practices. You select sort of the best among them, and then we publish. So these task groups, and we've probably stood up and disbanded, 20 some task groups since 2018. The output of that, it's on our website, healthsectorcouncil.org. Go into the publications tab. We have 22 best practices and another 8 or so policy guidance documents that are freely available, as you said, Donna, by the sector, for the sector. We created it, not a consultant, not HHS. We created this for the industry. So fast forward to, the year 2022, and we said, we've really done a lot in those publications to address that task force report from 2017. What's missing? How has, we know the healthcare industry has changed a lot over the past 5 years. We know it's going to change more over the next 5 years. What are those changes? Healthcare delivery changes, the business side with consolidation, with workforce challenges, what changes are coming over the next 5 years, and what are the cybersecurity implications, cyber threats, cyber risks, and how do we deal with that? So we spent about 18 months. We had about 50 or 60 CISOs who were participating, some clinical people, administrative people as well. And we sort of looked at those trends and we developed sort of a set of end state goals. And what we settled on were 12 implementing objectives. What's our to-do list? What do we have to do? Now, who's we? Well, you
All
look
of
at
us.
it's all of us, but in some cases, I'm gonna read here. So you're on the artificial intelligence. Okay, that's objective number 8: increase utilization of automation and emerging technologies like AI to drive efficiencies in cybersecurity processes. Well, that's going to apply not just to individual enterprises, an individual hospital, a med tech, or a pharma company. Each organization can look at objective number 8 and say, well, how are we going to do this?
Uh-huh.
But then you have to get out of your four walls and say, how does this interact with the rest of the ecosystem? So I'm not sure, I can't remember which subgroup you're in, but one of the subgroups on AI is third parties.
Yeah.
Well, how are third parties connecting to my hospital network using AI? What are the risks from that? Mm-hmm. So then you start to look at each one of these objectives, and each organization asks themselves, where do we see ourselves in objective number 12? Enabling mutual aid across different organizations. No hospital left behind. No rural health provider left behind. How do we help that rural Southern Kentucky hospital if they are suffering from a cyber attack? But then how does the government get involved? So the government looks at each one of these objectives, and they participated with us in the development of the strategic plan. Now they can't make commitments very easily as government because governments change, right? But in the development of this, they could look at this and reasonably say, yes, that is within the responsibility, within the authorities of the government. Mechanisms to enable mutual aid. Well, is that grant money? Is that a new law passed by Congress that gives HHS some programmatic authority to help do better incident response among hospitals? So every organization, every subsector, because there's some medical device security stuff in here too. That's really coming down to the big med tech companies. What are we going to do to move the needle? And that's really sort of the magic of it. The objectives are written at a fairly high level. It doesn't get prescriptive. It's just the what. This is the what that has to be done. And then we need to decide individually and collectively the how. How are we actually going to do that? So that's what we're focused on now is implementing the strategic plan and aligning any new task groups that we form. And we're constantly, every year, we are forming new task groups, and others get their job done and they publish and they disband. Every new task group has to say, what strategic objective are we aligning to? Mm-hmm. And in that way, we have a discipline about trying to hit our mark by the year 2029, where hopefully we can actually say, yes, we have gotten healthcare cybersecurity to stable condition. Exactly.
We're just going for stable. Yeah.
Stable.
Yeah. Well, David and I got started from a 405D getting involved with because our focus is the small and medium markets and private industry. We work some with some local county governments and things, but everything's smaller.
Yeah.
And, now 405Ds rolled into, we're scattered about within the other HSCC task groups, but that's where we kind of got our start and then learned our way around, so to speak. And there's so many that I would love to be involved in, but my team would they would handcuff me to the desk if I did that. But I get really excited about all these different things that we're doing, and so. I know that we're looking at several different things that we've just come out with. David and I did a whole episode reviewing every time something comes out, we try to find a way to get it in. and do an episode on it. And we just did one on the edge report.
Yep.
That came out. We've covered that in detail. We've got I know there's several things, like I'm on the in education and enablement subgroup of AI.
Yep. Yep.
And we're trying to figure out what we can get out quickly for AI stuff, because AI is moving so rapidly.
Yep.
But we've got all these other task groups. You want to hit on those for a little bit, all the different areas and what we got coming out sooner rather than later.
So right now we have 11 active task groups. Some are on the downslide as they approach final publication. The artificial intelligence task group that you are on got started not too long ago, so it's definitely on the upward arc. As these 5 different subgroups are subgroups on education, as you mentioned, on third parties, another one on threat monitoring, another one is on governance, I think, and finally secure by design.
Yeah.
But because AI is such a huge topic, so we wanted to break it up into bite-sized chunks. We have another one about cybersecurity board governance.
Yes.
We call it the cyborg task group, cyber board governance. But it's basically about, a lot of CISOs still have to grovel for resources, decreasingly so, but still, how does a CISO speak to the board speak business to the board in a way that they can understand and provide support and authority for the investments that are necessary? And then secondarily, how do we educate the board on some of the basics of cybersecurity? You got a board briefing, there you are, you got your CISO talking to you, you don't understand a word they're saying. What are the right questions to ask? What are the basics about cybersecurity that a board member or a board of trustees member ought to know? We have a number of task groups on medical device security. That's a complicated topic. And this is a really interesting one in the sense that when I first came on, there was a lot of circular finger pointing between the health delivery organizations and the med tech companies about who's responsible, who's accountable for cybersecurity of medical devices. Well, certainly the med tech company on the front end should be designing and building it in from the ground up. So we developed a best practice for that called the Joint Security Plan. This is what the medical technology companies ought to be doing. This is what the hospitals ought to be expecting. Okay, let's take it down the road a bit. Now we're getting to what's the security of that medical device as it ages in the clinical environment. Slowly, you're not going to be able to update or patch it anymore because the operating system is old. It's a 20-year-old MRI machine. Who's responsible? When does risk transfer happen from the med tech company to the hospital? So that's another one of our best practices. Another one is vulnerability communications. The med device company has just discovered a vulnerability. What's the best way? What's the best pathway with the right language to inform the hospital about this vulnerability and how severe the risk is or not severe, so that they can prioritize patching or workarounds, that kind of thing. There's a whole lot of complexity to this. So, we've done a lot of medtech security. We have a task group that's closing out its work on a model contract, version 2 of a model contract. What's 80% of the most relevant cybersecurity terms and conditions in a contract between a hospital and their device vendor? We've got others on outreach and awareness. We've got a really interesting one called the SMART task group, sector mapping and risk template. This follows on the heels of the Change Healthcare cyber attack from last year, which caused us to think, my goodness, what are the other critical services, functions, utilities that support, that undergird the healthcare system, that support critical workflows in healthcare, whether it's retail pharmacy or medical imaging or blood supply and distribution. What are all the steps along the way from beginning to end? And most of them are digital. They're taking place over software, over IT, over communications platforms. what is the risk on all of those hops from beginning to end that they could be disrupted by a cyber attack. So we are mapping that out. We've developed about 10 different maps of different workflows so that we can visualize. So a hospital can visualize those workflows so that a pharmaceutical company can visualize where they are in that pharmacy chain and be able to assign risk and measure that risk so that we can have a risk management plan. In some cases, we know, like Change Healthcare, there's nothing we're going to be able to do about that. They manage 1/3 of the healthcare industry. We can't just shift vendors easily.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just say it's going to happen. We better have a backup plan. We can't change that vendor. We can't influence their behavior. So that's what this is about. We're going to be publishing those maps fairly soon, probably late summer.
Oh, cool.
And then we're going to move on to phase 2 to really develop a risk management plan around those maps. And then you mentioned the On the Edge, which was, for those not familiar with it, it was the result of our interviewing 40 executives from resource-constrained, rural, critical access, underserved health providers across the country, 30 states, interviewing them about how do you think about cybersecurity? How do you equate cyber safety with patient safety? Do you know who's handling your cyber? We didn't talk to a lot of IT or CISOs.
Mm-hmm.
We talked to the people running the organization. What about your cyber insurance? So we asked all of these questions, and with the expectation that there was going to be new regulations, new mandates on health providers for cybersecurity. That's just going to be another straw that breaks your camel's back. What kind of support from the government would be meaningful that would accompany those regulations? What kind of support from the community, mutual aid, would be meaningful for you to actually be in compliance with that? So that was the essence of that report. We're going to phase 2 now with that task group to say, okay, we've made these recommendations. We've shown the findings and the recommendations. Now what? Now, how are we going to now try to put those recommendations into action? And that again aligns with one of our strategic objectives.
Yeah, the small and rural thing, when we did the all hands across America, and David and I were like, well, we're going to be the only ones in this room in Charlotte that's worried about the small. The whole room ended up talking about that, because so many, the big health systems are working, they're going into these smaller entities, whether they're acquiring them or working with them. And it's a lot. What we often run into is people don't understand how it's really working in that environment. And that's one of the things that I try really hard to bring to the table in these conversations. I was in one breakout years ago, and I remember they were going through all of this, and I was like, I just want to add that none of that'll work in a small entity. What you just went through, all that great, none of it will work in a small entity. But we're really looking forward to the board one, because we take those and convert them into how can I apply those in the small and medium market?
Yeah.
Because it is a completely different world. And so there's several of those I'm looking forward to kind of holding out, committing to any more task groups to see what we can do on what we end up doing in with our report, because I think it had a lot of great information. But our big concern is, they so often believe they know what to do, but they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And
that's what we heard a lot in those interviews. That's what we heard in those interviews. They say, we know what to do. We just don't have the people to do it. And to which I wanted to say, well, are you sure well, maybe you know what to do, but maybe you don't have full visibility about how you're getting hosed. I mean, they're in your networks,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, there's so many things that they don't understand. Like, they don't understand what you should be doing in a risk analysis in many cases.
Yeah.
So how can I do risk management if I haven't even gotten a complete and thorough risk analysis. And I know
Yeah.
from that SMART chart when we did the all hands in San Diego and they put the first rounds, I was like, huh, just the thought of how many places, what was the first one we were looking at? Like drugs, the pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Just the broad connection, you know that it's there, but until you see a picture of it, it becomes quite concerning and overwhelming. So I'm just going to tell everybody these things are awesome. We need them. It's kind of like our sector risk analysis is what that started as, but it's going to overwhelm everybody when they see them.
It may. I mean, for some of them, the feedback that some of our larger hospitals, others got when they sort of test drove early iterations of those maps internally to their enterprise to talking to people in those workflows or talking to people in supply chain procurement, that kind of thing. They said, well, we're already doing that, just not that methodology. And I don't know if I want to switch over now. So there's different ways of doing those risk assessments, and I'm certainly no expert on it, but you're right about the visualization. It was retail pharmacy as you're thinking about when I do these orientation calls for new members. At the bottom of the chart, and it's just a PowerPoint page. There's the little person.
Yeah.
I'm the patient, and there's a little line that goes up to a box. That's the provider. That means that's where I'm getting my prescription. And then
Yeah.
there's another line from that box that takes a couple of hops to little circles, and one of those circles is prior authorization. So that before I can get that prescription to go to the pharmacy, it has to be approved. So that when I go to the pharmacy, I can actually pick up my prescription and the doctor will get paid. And there's this line between those events. And I point that out, and that line, that line was Change Healthcare, right?
Yeah.
Is Change Healthcare. That line got severed. So therefore, I didn't get my prescription as a whole bunch, millions of people didn't as they lined up at the pharmacy, which did not have their prescription, and the doctor didn't get paid. So when you put it in those terms, and particularly the doctor didn't get paid part, that makes me, when the money stops flowing is when people really pay attention. Then I think that visualization is then the impact is palpable.
Very much so. Very much so. So, I mean, I'm excited about the work that we're doing. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be doing the work if I didn't feel it was valuable and of course, interesting because I'm still a nerd. And that's going to happen all the time. But I know that one of the things that we often try to do is to bring in more of the people that are in the healthcare delivery organizations to join us. There's vendors, tons of them, because we're all so engaged in cybersecurity, but we need the people in the heat of the moment, right? And so what's your plug to try to get some of those folks to join us? Because I don't know how. I've gotten like one or two that have agreed, just by the way. I don't know if I've got them implemented, but I just had done
as it turns out. So as for the vendors, we have a category of membership called advisors. We cap, and you are among them because you personally are not, your organization is not a regulated healthcare entity. We cap the number of advisors, the consultants, the law firms, the security companies. We cap that at 15% of the overall private sector membership, because it really is a membership of the owners and operators. They're the ones that are on the hook. Well, it turns out we do have quite a number, actually. I mean, not a huge number, but particularly from some of the academic institutions, we have doctors, we have physicians, we have quite a number of former practicing physicians and or nurse practitioners, physicians assistants, a number of there's high burnout rates in the nursing ranks. It's very interesting how many nurses, because they are constantly in the presence of technology and patient monitors and all the stuff that they have to handle, that they start moving into HTS, so health technology management. So they become
Yes.
experts. They become experts first in the IT and the digital side, and then many of them are starting to move into cybersecurity. So we do have a pretty good consciousness of actual health delivery people, and certainly one of our leaders, a couple of our leaders is our from UC San Diego.
Yeah.
One of our publications is not a publication; it's a video. It's our only
Video.
video.
Yeah.
We outsourced some funding, and it's called Cybersecurity for the Clinician. It is 8 episodes in total, 48 minutes, good for one CME. But this is what the clinician, this is what that nurse, the surgeon, the family practice physician, this is what you need to know about cybersecurity. Sorry, but you have to know something about it because you're touching patients, you're touching data, you're touching technology. You need to know what to do and what not to do. The on-camera talent on the video is an emergency room doctor from UC San Diego Health. And before he went to med school, he was a self-trained hacker. Who better? So,
Yeah.
and he and his cohorts there and others, we even had a partner from Department of Homeland Security, CISA, who was sort of a subject matter expert that they brought on to help the health sector. He's the former CEO of a couple of different hospital systems as a physician and an administrator. Really great help. So we recognize, Donna, as you said, it's hard to get the physicians. Why would I'm sorry, I'm a doctor. You want me to come to the cybersecurity working group? Well,
Yeah.
how am I going to be of any help to you? Well, you will, but instead, I think we can use that talent episodically. Go to our CISO
Yeah.
and say, you know what, we need, if we got a task group on AI, and maybe you're going to be asked to do this. Okay, now we've got this framework for good AI. Let's go out to the physicians now. So go back into you're the CISO, you're the clinical engineer for your hospital system. Go talk to a couple of your physicians. Let's give them a survey or something, and we'll get their input without asking them to sit in on 1 hour weekly task group meetings talking in a language that they don't have any understanding of. So we're leveraging clinical support as much as we can.
Well, and I want more like practice managers, what's coming to mind, but it's the people in those small and medium that are running the business side.
Yeah.
And understand those challenges that I think would be really helpful to have more of, whether it's compliance officers or I would love to have the managers, but I mean, they're already stretched thin anyway. So, but it's the business side of it that is one area where I think we really could use some help, but
yeah,
I know it's hard. Trust me, I know it's hard.
It is, but I'm actually surprised how many we do have. I haven't taken account. When we look at our membership, we sort of break it up into different subsectors. What percentage is health providers? What percentage is med tech? What percentage is pharma? But we haven't looked at, I don't know, however you categorize size, number of hospital beds, revenue, number of employees. We haven't done that, and maybe that's cyber working group 2.0 is to get a real strong, high fidelity profile of our membership to really be able to demonstrate to HHS, look, man, we are representing a broad cross section of this industry. And we do have a number of small, medium size health providers. They can't participate every week, but they want to be a part of this. If for no other reason than to at least be aware to keep up with what we're doing. If they can't contribute on the front end, then they know what's coming later, that here's a resource that's coming down the pike on artificial intelligence, and I'm going to be able to use the good thinking of my peers in the industry to apply to my environment. Great. That's all we want. That's all we want. Ultimately, what we want is and that's where you come in a lot, Donna, and what you have done really well at. I think the bigger challenge, it's not a huge challenge to write these best practices, to bring the thought leaders together to say, how do you do this? What's the best way to do this cybersecurity thing? That's not so hard because that's what they do every day. The hard part is we're not marketers. The hard part is how do we lead that horse to water and get the horse to drink? The horse is particularly a lot of the small, rural health providers. They're the horse, and the water that they need to drink is our cybersecurity practices. If all of them were to implement what we give them, we would be so much better off. So that's the hard part, is the marketing side of it. So that, and ultimately what we just want, it's by the sector, for the sector. All of those publications are completely free.
Yes.
No strings attached. And we just want you to implement it. We even tell our advisor members, the consultants, you want to take Hiccup, you worked on Hiccup, Donna, health industry cyber practices, go ahead and monetize it. Take the Hiccup, go to your clients, your hospitals, and say, here's the health industry cyber practices. Let me help you implement it in your environment, and I'll send you a bill. And that's beautiful as far as I'm concerned. If you can monetize to get these organizations to implement these best practices, whether it's medical device security or incident response, we win.
Yeah, and we've kind of learned how to do it a backdoor kind of way, but I'll have to tell you about that later. But wink, wink. Geez, I can't believe we've already hit this much time. But so before we close up shop here, what do you see? I mean, you've got to stick with this. We were just talking about birthdays and all that commitment, and I know why. And David and I often talk about we do this because we actually want to help people. And so, what is it with you? What keeps you in the fight, and where do you see us going? I know our 5-year plan, but what about Greg?
Well, I'll tell you, I want to leave here and hand the baton off to the next person, knowing that we've got a kind of alignment across these subsectors, some of which don't all agree and don't always see cybersecurity as a common threat among us, a shared challenge, therefore a shared responsibility, but also with government. We proposed to the government earlier this year in April. As you know, the HIPAA security rule, notice of proposed rulemaking, came out at the beginning of the year. By my reading, it got nothing but hate mail from most of the industry. Said this is heavy-handed, it is not practical, it is costly and vague, and also maybe not even going to be effective at improving cybersecurity. Okay, how about we have a compromise? How about, and this is our proposal, how about we embark on a consultative put the HIPAA security rule aside for a little while. Let's have a consultative process between government and industry. Sector Coordinating Council will raise our hand and be the coordinating mechanism on our side. And let's do a consultative process that is very similar to the NIST cybersecurity framework. For those of you not familiar with that in the audience, it was just a way for the government in 2013 and 14 to convene industry, the critical industry sectors together and say, what looks good what would be a good cybersecurity framework that we can all, in high level, that we can all implement to protect our critical infrastructure. After 1 year with NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, coordinating this, came up with what is now widely known and widely implemented as the NIST cybersecurity framework. What if we did the same thing, only it's the NIST healthcare cybersecurity framework, and it is a negotiation not just on HIPAA. So HIPAA is just the health providers, right? It's just covered entities and business associates. What about all the others? What are the interconnects with pharma and with the payers and with our third-party technology and service providers who are not regulated? How about if we look at healthcare cybersecurity from an ecosystem-wide policy framework. And we can start with those 28 publications that we have published and say, look, we have told ourselves this is how it should be done, whether it's hiccup, whether it's medical device security. We've said these are the best practices that we can be held accountable to. So government, call us on it.
Yeah.
Let's negotiate which of those best practices will be mandatory on us, which of them ought to remain voluntary because they're dealing with technology that's constantly evolving. And if you say multi-factor authentication today, in 4 years, they're going to say, what's that? What's MFA? Well, that's handled by AI now. That's not even a thing. Okay, so we'll make some things remain voluntary and other things, let's make them mandatory because we know there's wide variations in the level of security and security compliance across the sector. Let's see if we can. So that's what Greg wants. That's what Greg wants to leave behind. And, I'm also, I will say, quite proud that, when we first started this, I did have the vision and experience, and a lot of people were sort of deferring to me as to what's the next step. How do we go about doing this? I don't have to do that anymore because there is this culture of security and a culture of leadership where now people are stepping up, wanting to be an executive committee member, wanting to chair this organization, having ideas about not just how we organize this council, which is just a thing of 470 organizations. Wow. Yeah. But how do we influence the marketplace? How do we influence the direction of healthcare, the industry, to be more secure and resilient? So people are starting to think strategic. They're starting, they have, but they have a forum. They have a forum to do this, to be thinking about what ought to be. I don't have to just be thinking about my compliance, what I have to get done today. Yes. We need to be thinking about what ought to be and influence the government's thinking about that as well, because we are the owners and operators, right? We are the dreamers of dreams and the makers of music, as Willy Wonka said. Actually, it actually was a poet who said that, but it wasn't Willy Wonka. But anyway, that's we have built this organization into a culture of security and a culture of leadership and a culture of collaboration, and that's going to go on without me. Obviously, I'm telegraphing the fact that I'm not too far off, a couple of years from stepping down and head off into other ventures in retirement. But I will be leaving behind a very strong organization.
Yes, as a member of it, I appreciate your leadership and all of the things that we've done. And we've got so many great people that are so involved, but I know you started from nothing. So it got there somehow, and it had to have been, with you. So anything else we need to add? Because we hand out all the information about HSCC all the time. And anytime you want to come back and talk about whatever's come out, if you want to come back and talk about any of the things we release, David and I try not to bother you because
I would love to. Like I said at the start of this thing, I never met a microphone I didn't like. I really do, not because I like to hear myself talk. I bore myself, but the topic is not boring, and more importantly, it's just important to continuously get the word out and really raise awareness. And any forum I can do, I'm going to be testifying probably next week to the Congress, as I did back in April. Use that as a bully pulpit to get the word out. For those of your listeners who might ask, well, how do I get involved? I know you're going to put out that collateral material. It's very simple. It's healthsectorcouncil.org. You go to the contact page, and there's just a little form to fill out. I click the button that says I'm interested in membership. It comes to me and to my partner, Allison Burke, and then we set you up with an orientation call and put you to work.
Yeah, because we got plenty of work to do.
You got plenty of work to do.
So thanks for your time, Greg. And David's computer died in the car.
As long as the AC did not die in the car.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Because he is in South Carolina, so
Yeah.
and near the beach, so it's not chilly there.
Well, it's 100. It's almost 100 degrees here in DC, and our AC cannot keep up. It is 85 degrees in this room right now.
Woo!
So,
Well, you go get you something chilly to drink before your next call, my friend.
all right.
So without David here, I have to do our closing. And as Greg says, cyber safety is patient safety. And from David and myself, as always, HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.